Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you are here for this extraordinary event. And it's my privilege to be one of the ministers here at First Unitarian Church. And before we get started with the program, I want to take this moment just to welcome you into our spiritual home and to tell you I am so pleased to see you here. As a minister, I understand the power of story. Sunday after Sunday, after all, our congregation gathers specifically to contemplate the stories in our spiritual scriptures. And to contemplate the stories of miracles, the stories of courage, the stories of war. These stories, all involving people long ago deceased, are so powerful. They still shape the beliefs and the behaviors of us living today. Stories carry that kind of power. So even though our lives are busy, even though free moments are hard to come by, we take time in our busy lives to contemplate other people's stories. Do we do this simply to be virtuous? No. We do this because life is hard. Life is confusing. And sometimes life hits us so hard, we forget who we are or why we even matter. So we come together week in and week out with a hunger to make sense of our lives and to figure out how our individual stories connect to the bigger story called life. Now, for thousands of years, most cultures have shared this greater understanding of the transformational role of storytelling. They even had special rituals by which people returning from war could let their stories be heard. It wasn't done so much to glorify the experience of war, but to allow the community to relieve the burden being carried by those who had seen battle. It was done to help our warriors reintegrate into our communities and be whole once again. Now, sadly, many of these rituals have fallen out of use, and we have seen the toll this has had on our veterans. But today is different. Today, we gather to intentionally express gratitude to our veterans, to hear their stories, and to officially welcome them back into our community. It is my hope in so doing, we will all be embraced by the power of their words, the power of their stories, and be forever changed. May it be so. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to a very special person, Michael Meade. He's a mythologist and author of several books, his latest, just recently released, being called World Behind the World, Living After the Ends of Time. It's about living in this chaotic time of change. He's also been facilitating a retreat with about 24 vets and their family members. They've been meeting and gathering and doing deep work since Friday, and they are here to share their experience. Let us now give a warm welcome to Michael Meade.
Thank you so much for coming out on this night. I want to give a little sense of what we've been doing and give you a suggestion about what your part in it is. I want to follow on what Kate said. In all cultures of the world until modern times, the warriors would be welcomed in elaborate ways in order to reduce the war in them and also to reintegrate them back into common culture, but not in a simple way, because going to war or going into any great crisis was considered to be part of what's called an initiatory path. And the simplest way to put it is there's 3 steps to it. One is the separation, when you're separated from everybody that you know and maybe would love to be with, and you can see that clearly in all situations that are military, because off you go, off to war, as they say. The middle step is called ordeals, and that's when you struggle. In African culture, they say war is when life and death are battling with each other. And so you enter a life and death struggle. And then the third part is very serious. That is to say, coming back, being fully welcomed and recognized by those who are interested in your life and will take enough care to see how you've changed. So it's not a simple, just a general support. It's an actual witnessing and recognizing changes. When the third step doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen in modern culture, people have no choice but to repeat the first two steps, step one and step two. So you find veterans separated and isolated out all over the place, going back to step one and staying there. And then you find others in the ordeal. PTSD is called now, post-traumatic stress disorder. But it's really not post, you see? Because they're back in it. It's present traumatic stress. And it's not their disorder, it's our disorder, because they're part of our culture. And they were doing the job of the culture when they got it, and so it's the job of the culture to help them get through it. Does that make sense? So this conversation, we're calling it, it requires compassionate, attentive witnesses, and that's part of what your task is. And I really thank you for being interested in this. And of course, we're not talking about politics. At least I think some of that got settled recently, hopefully at least for a few days. We're past politics. We're actually below politics. We're beyond it and below it. Because what we've been doing since Friday is some politics comes into it naturally. People have opinions and point of view. But we didn't stay there very long. We went to a very deep place, the place of the human soul, and the place where everybody turns out to be equal as long as they're willing to express and reveal their pain, because it's pain and suffering that really makes people equal. And we've been down in that place. And what we've been doing down there is sharing stories, as was said, but then converting parts of those stories into poetry. We use the term very loosely, poetry. It comes from the Greek poesis, and it means to make. That's all it means. And so we made some things. And the idea wasn't to do it well or to do it grammatically correctly. And I should tell you there are some poetic phrases in there that usually are not said in the church. You get what I mean? If you're going to deal with your pain and your stress, you might have to use a few curse words. And so when you hear them tonight, I hope you're not offended, but imagine them as part of poetic license and the kind of sacred language of the evening. I hope you're getting the point there. All right. And so the idea is to be past the politics and even past the normal sense of religion and into the place where the soul speaks, and it speaks with beauty and it speaks with pain, and it grabs the words that are there in order to express itself. We gathered as a group. Some have written before. Many had never written before. Some are going to read something that they wrote for the first time tonight. Everybody's going to try to give you a piece of what their story is. And what I'm asking you to do is be compassionate listeners to this and just, help see it, help feel it. And when you feel like it, applaud it. All right? That's all you have to do. That's your job. Well, a few other things, maybe. Like later, I want to ask you to sing, because singing also moves things in the soul. And so we'll get to an old song later and invite you into the song. So in the meantime, though, I think we'll start with the song. And this is an old chant-like song that calls in the ancestors. And the idea is we're never alone in this world. Those who once lived and passed on remain, by the way. In Africa, they're called the living dead. And having passed through this world, they're interested in those who are living in it now. And they keep an eye on us. And since they've already been through it and seen the whole road, they often try to give us messages about how to live it in a better way. So we're calling them in the beginning and asking them for guidance. And then we're going to do something that we did out in the camp on Mount Hood, and that is to say each of the veterans lit a candle. We had a fireplace, and a mantle and put a candle on the mantle representing all those they knew that didn't make it this far, that died in the war, that died after the war, that disappeared somehow. And so we're going to do that again tonight. We're going to put the candles out here. And just to say something else, the image here, this painting, which is really a stone painting, that is to say stones have been ground down with their natural pigments and then used as paint and then polished as stone again. And it's a kind of representation of, you could think of it as the Virgin Mary in the Christian tradition, or you could think of it as Isis, if you wanted to go that way, or Kuan Yin for those who are familiar with that. And you always use the image of the goddess, I guess you say, because of the compassion. This is the image of the one that forgives. And so one of the vets made it and brought it, and so that's why it's up there. And below it is a gravestone, and because he does that kind of work, he carves gravestones. And this stone is engraved for the first soldier that died in Vietnam. He's a Vietnam vet, and this is the name of the first soldier that died. So he's up there representing that whole wall of soldiers that died, and then all those that haven't been monumentalized yet. And so that's the setting. We're going to put candles up there, but we want to start with a song. And amongst the Dinka tribe that I've had the good fortune to work with, they say, you can hear a song coming. You can hear a story coming. And when you hear it, you should call out to it to make sure it gets all the way here. And the way they call out is to say, I wonder, wonder, wonder. I hear a song coming. I hear a story coming. And sometimes when you say that, people come out and help you to sing a song. Look at that. They came out. Pura samne, pura samne, pura samne wo, pura samne wo. So we're remembering the dead, and we're calling on the ancestors to guide us here tonight, to make this a beautiful night, to bring more healing into our hearts, and to guide the way. Pura samne, pura samne, pura samne wo, pura samne wo. It's a simple song. You can feel it. You can join us if you want. It's very old. You can't hurt it. Pura samini, pura mamini. Praise to the grandfathers. Praise to the grandmothers. The ones that first brought us here. The ones that saw the path of light, of life, and opened it up so that we get to walk it again. Praise to them. May they come and guide us. May they help us in the dark times. May they guide our feet to knowledge and to learning and to healing. Praise to them. You ready? Pura samine, pura samine, pura samine wo, going to sing it one more time all the way through in memory of those not fortunate enough to live unto this night. Those who had the gift of life and lost it or had it taken for them. Let's remember to them on this day, on this night, and sing it for those who cannot be here. Pura samne, pura samne, pura samne wo, pura samne wo, pura mamne, pura mamne, pura mamne wo, pura mamne wo. So those that can't be here on this occasion fall into two groups. The deceased, often called the ancestors, who we've just remembered, and those who are alive but are not here. And amongst those that are alive are those that are deployed. And so many of us here know people that are in combat situations in one place or another. And one of our friends, Laura Carpenter, who was with us in a situation like this just a few months ago, has redeployed to Iraq. She's a profoundly good poet and a sweet person, and we worried for her life. And she emailed the other day, because you can do that now, even from the battlefield, and said, is anybody going to read one of my poems? So I want to read a poem from Laura. It's called Lima Charlie. Dear God in heaven, or wherever, perhaps because my Humvee rolls through the valley of the shadows of death, Tagab, Jalalabad, Kabul, or perhaps because this land looks so much like the picture Bible of my childhood, I look for you in its swirling sands. Any of these mounts, it seems, could hold a Jesus preaching blessings on all that I am not the meek, certainly not the peacemaker. I went to 3 chaplains with my cloven soul, and the first one gave me medals of your saints. The second anointed my head with oil, but couldn't tell me why my cup runneth over when all around me your children die for want of drink, their thirsty bodies too weak to scream, only strong enough to whisper your name. The third offered holy water to douse me with, while just outside 2 babies were sprinkled with shrapnel. From minarets they call out your greatness, but the explosions drown their prayers, seeming greater still. Mortars steal children, rockets crumble men. If any should die before they wake, well, you know the rest, I'm sure. The bombs rain down, fire from above. The mines explode like geysers, fire from below. And in the streets, fires are burning in all directions. We speak of fighting fire with fire, of firefights and firepower, of enemy fire and of friendly. I plead with you for a cleansing fire, for candles burning on 1,000,000 altars, smoldering with incense and sage or sweetgrass, exhaling it out over the world. Couldn't a monk set himself ablaze or something? It seems fitting now. Or the one I was taught to call the Prince of Peace. Could that one send his spirit down in tongues of flame? A dove would work as well, I guess. The symbolism would be lost on no one. The Cherokee and the Navajo burn sacred tobacco to find you. And I, for my part, flick my 17th cigarette against a bush, hoping it might ignite and you might speak. The brush does catch for a moment. It crackles and then devolves into silence, like static on a radio. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. It's Latin. Agnus Dei, Lamb of the world, miserere nobis, have mercy on us. How? Copy over. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Copy over. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona nobis pacem, give the world peace. But the silence on your end thunders in my skull, so deafeningly loud, so utterly clear.
I'm Brian Van Horn. I served with the Army in Kirkuk, Iraq in 04 and 05. This is entitled The Heart of a Warrior. In the heart of a warrior are many things you can't see. A pride and honor, a selfless hand stretched out to you and me. Deep inside his heart cries out for many things he's done. A wish for the pain to stop, for a peaceful time to come. He never stops giving, always trying to give more, to make up for the things he feels when he closes a special door. In the heart of a warrior are the things you may never see. Outside a crusted, hardened shell, inside it's you and me. If and when the time comes, maybe only when laid to rest, is when you'll see the real warrior, a human put to test. If you've never been the warrior, but you'll try to understand what makes this person who he is, what's in his lifelong plan. He didn't plan his pathway, but now he's on his own, and only other warriors can help him find his way home.
So there are many ceremonies and small rites that are done to welcome warriors back from battle. And I think in this culture we have a lot of welcoming to do going way back. And so we want to go way back and pull one of those ceremonies out of someone else's culture, actually. And in Tibet, there are monks and other people who know death and know suffering, who spend part of their time praying and carving little skulls out of bones. And then they make those things into necklaces. And so they're bone necklaces and they're skull necklaces. And they're used in ceremonies that help people who have faced death or been involved with death find more careful footing in the land of the living. And so I want to give one of these to Brian. And the idea here is to simply say, we recognize you, that's what we're doing here, and we know you to be an important link in the chain of being. And we're glad that you made it back, and we're happy to see you here and writing and occasionally coming off the cliff. That's an inside joke. And, and so I want to give you this necklace in the old way. And what they say is this: for you who have faced death but have chosen life, welcome and be here with us. So the way we've arranged this and the way we worked for the past several days, it turns out that if something doesn't fit into a coherent narrative or a story, it's all the more troublesome, and it causes all the more anxiety. And so we've been working with stories. And so I'm going to tell two very, very old stories. One is a little myth, and the other is a folktale. And then we're going to weave into those stories poems that have been written in the last several days. So you have the most recent news of the soul coming in brand new poems, and then the ancient narratives of the soul coming in these stories. One story is about the world and the conditions of the world we're in, and the other is about the important struggle for each human being to find meaning in their life, to find love, and to find healing. And so this is the first part of the first little story, which is called a recreation story, or how the world rekindles itself from the ashes of its own destruction. So once upon a time, not in this time, but some other time, once in some other place, not in this place, but in some other place, it happened that a great fire started, and the fire spread rapidly, and there was nothing that could stop it, and it began to consume everything that there was and convert it to ash. Some people say that fire started because the earth got too warm. Other people say it started because so many wars were going on that one war ignited another until eventually everything was ignited. I don't know which it was. It's possible that it was both. At any rate, the fire began, and it began to spread, and as it spread, it consumed forests. It melted mountains. It melted boulders. It destroyed everything. Eventually, it killed everything that was alive in the world until everything that there was reduced to ash. And all the way that you could look, all you could see is ash. And everything that had been was gone, except for two beings that happened to be in the other world when this world caught on fire. They were two bird beings, and they had flown to the other world. And so they weren't consumed by the flames that consumed everything else. But eventually, they longed for their home, as everybody does, and they decided to fly back into this world and see if they could find their home and return there. And when they flew back into this world, all that they could see was ashes, everything reduced and turned to ashes, and they had no idea which way to turn or how to reach home or how to recognize it. And as they were flying along, the trickster appeared and said, you know, if you were to point your fingers out before you, when your fingers bent down of their own accord and pointed to the earth, you would be above your home. Now, I can't explain how it is that bird beings could also have fingers. The story doesn't explain. I'm just offering the story. It's a very old story, and it's possible that some beings used to have fingers and wings. I don't know, but it happened that these two bird beings, one of them called Ikanchu, the other called Chuna, took the information from the trickster and began to point their fingers forward as they were flying over the ashes that used to be the world. Eventually, sure enough, their fingers pointed down, and when the fingers pointed down, they themselves descended, and descended straight down to the ashes that used to be this world. As soon as they touched down into the ashes, they became hungry, and Ikanchu began to look for something to eat, and he began to poke around in the pile of ashes. And in poking around, he hit something hard, and so he grabbed it and he pulled it up, and he looked in his hand or wing or whatever that was, and he saw that what he was holding was a piece of charcoal. And as he held it, it occurred to him, this probably wasn't good to eat, but then again, a piece of charcoal formerly had belonged to a tree, and then again, it was drums that came from trees as well, and as long as he couldn't eat it, he might as well use it as a drum. And so, Ikanchu began to drum on this piece of charcoal, and as long as he was drumming, he might as well be dancing, and pretty soon, he was dancing in the ashes of the world and drumming on a blackened piece of charcoal, and we will lay him there in that great spread of ashes that used to be the world until we ourselves come back again to this story a little later. So we're in the ashes now, in case you didn't get it. We're in the ashes.
My name is Tim Glazer. I served in the U.S. Air Force during Gulf War. I served in the U.S. Army during Operation Iraqi Freedom. This is called pain. My pain is real. I don't want it anymore. You can have it. Hell, you barely believe I have it. My meds are strong. They help mask the pain. The pain is stronger. It always seems to push through. There are days that brings me to tears I cannot hide, agony that is too overwhelming. But it is mine, and now my duty is to do my best I can. Broken physically as I am spiritually, I am strong. My battle has begun, and I intend to fight. as long as I am able. I know the eventual winner, but I won't go down without a fight. Sometimes I wish the pain was visible, so it could be in your face as much as it is in mine. Other days, I am glad for both of us that you can't see it, because I couldn't handle the constant pity. I just ask for the respect and appreciation I deserve for doing my job, so you don't have to deal with the fight. One day, though, you will relax from and even forget this fight. I, on the other hand, will never get to relax from mine. It is that ignorance that you have that makes me feel like a fool. I'm not, though. I'm the one who fought so you could be the fool.
My name is Alex Keeve, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, OIF, OEF, veteran. The significant thing about our pain is that we are not the only one holding it. It is the other, searching for how to love us, that is holding it. Often, there's nothing in this world that feels authentic, that feels alive. Even nature seems to be dead, and our speech is dead. And my tears are saltless. My heart is black and rotting, because I have failed again to love. All my satisfaction is sickening. Why do anything? Why say anything when all that comes out is vomit and shit? Elegies of the angels become the tears falling down from heaven's eyes to the scorched ground, torn open with our metal, with our ignorance. You can keep your medals. You can do it, bro. Take it. Take your time. You can keep your medals, Great Eagle of the Marine Corps. Claws buried deep in the earth. Anchor penetrating the center, scarring whatever you touch. Your ideals are mine no longer. You are a reality too small for honor. I have been deceived for too long by your promise. Now I will start the healing, embracing love before hate, and reaching out to those that have lost hope.
So those of us that know Alex, we know why he's talking about love, because his heart's so big. His heart's huge like a volcano, occasionally exploding. It's the truth, isn't it? It's the truth. It's the truth. But only those that can carry such a big fire can carry a big love. So we're glad you made it back. And we look forward to all the great things that you're going to do. And I want to say, for you who has faced death and looked straight at it, but have chosen life, we welcome you here, and we love you. Yeah. All love, all love.
That's going to be a tough act to follow. My name is Thomas Burroughs. I'm Vietnam, I was infantry, airborne. The return flight home was just a blur, over in the blink of an eye, as it were. No time to deal with all the stress, no time set aside to decompress. From jungle heat to city street, it seems I didn't miss a beat. I was here, I was there, now I'm here, and all I brought back was my good friend fear. The man at the airport says, "What's wrong, boy? You don't look so well." Well, you wouldn't either if you'd spent my time in hell, where the jaws of death are gaping wide, waiting for you to try just one foot inside. One misstep and the trap is sprung, some lay bleeding, other lives are done. But each time I feel those steel jaws slam shut, I'd feel my good friend fear rise into my gut. And I'd fight back the best that I could, and to my surprise, I still stood. Body parts splatter trees, the stench of gore in the morning breeze, screams of pain from here and there, white-hot metal sears the air, cutting the jungle into stubble. Friend and foe lay among the rubble. Hate, fear, pain, tears, all the emotions that a young man can feel, they all hit at once. It's quite surreal. To be just standing there, as I said, drawing breath when I should be dead. Now I stand here. I'm nearing the end of my life. I've lost my family. I've lost my wife. Just this one chance. That's all I need. But all of my words, you chose not to heed. So I've been left to face this world alone. But from the inside out, I have grown. And the greatest lesson, which I've learned so well, is that I've never really left my time in hell.
You know, standing with Thomas, watching him for several days, he's so kind, he's gentle, he's quickly helpful to everybody. It's hard to imagine he could have been in that hell. It's hard to imagine that people have to do that, people with a kind nature, with a friendly, caring personality like Thomas. So we're glad that you're here. We hope that you're making movements out of that hell. We know you're carrying it, but we hope that you can leave some of it behind, take greater steps into the gentle world that's nearby too. For you who have faced death but chosen life, we're glad you're here. We welcome you back, and we want you to keep going. Thank you. You're beautiful.
I'm Amy Richardson, Mabry, and I'm a mother of a soldier who was wounded in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Anger is the title of my poem. Fighting so hard for what he needs while scared of what is to come. I hate this fight. I want to care for him, be by his side. Damn it! I feel like I'm going around in circles. I need rest. Do others in powerful positions not hear and listen? Why do they think they know all? I love my son. I know him better than they do. Stop looking at me as a woman without strength. I will show you what I am made of. Not only am I dealing with the hardest thing ever in my life, the year starts throwing heartache upon heartache my way. 6 deaths in 1 year. How do I stand again? I guess I'll have to trust. Once more, I am weary.
Been a hard year, Amy, and you've spoken about it with deep care. And I know you also have had your injury of your own shoulder and arm and a lot of personal pain besides the family pain. So we know that you've been facing death in many different ways. For you that have faced death, chosen life, we hope you keep choosing it, and finding a big open road and good times with your son. Thank you.
My name is Staff Sergeant Todd Fawn. I spent 7 years active, Afghanistan and Iraq vet. This one's called Why, to the mom and dad of that boy. It was a day that I will never forget, December 1st of 2006. The sun was hot. Why? They were on a roof. I was on the street. The shot rang clear and true, but I heard nothing. Why? I woke on my belly, rifle extended above me. I was lying flat, no way to get any lower. I heard my gunner give the call, we are feared. Contact, small arms. I didn't believe my ears. I felt numb, no pain. I rolled over, started to scan and watched a man stand. Then it happened. The boy rose up, gun in hand. Without a second thought, I pulled the trigger, and down he fell. I tried to stand. I fell right back down. My pants started to stick to my leg the more I moved. The pain set in. The more the pain, the more the hate and anger burned. I screamed at my soldiers when they arrived. Hurry the fuck up. Get me up. Let's fucking go. I fought with my platoon sergeant. I started pushing my way to the house. I got to the roof, and there he lay. Pin-sized hole through the front of his head. Eyes open, the look of fear on his face. I held back the tears of pain, and the hate and anger burned even more. I could hear the mom screaming as I had her 10 kids on their knees right in front next to their door. Dad only said, why, over and over. Mom screamed, why? Why did you kill him? As I walked out of the house in front of the family, Dad went white, whiter than a ghost. I looked at him and said, why? Why? I can't believe this. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did this. Why? It is not my job to kill. A sniper trained to kill. Why? I can't let it go. The pain is so deep in my soul. Why can people sit in an office and force others to go and kill? And give them a gun. Let them go fight for their lives. This is bullshit.
Trouble with facing certain kinds of death is that you face it over and over again. It comes back in dreams. So we know you've been suffering with this and being strong in your particular way. So I want to give you this necklace of skulls to stand against the dream. So you can keep asking why, but not have to feel so deeply hurt by it, because we know your nobility. We know the goodness of your soul. For you who have faced death but choose life, wear this necklace in peace and strength. So that was kind of the ashes, in the ashes section. We're just gathering the poems into sections. Maybe every life goes through ashes at certain points. where no matter what you do, it turns to ash. And that gives us, when we have that experience, that gives us a capacity to sympathize and empathize with the ashes that others find themselves in. We spent a good deal of the past 5 days in ashes, heavy-duty ashes, helping each other find ways to move in those ashes. And I want to say again, I really am grateful to all of you for coming out and being honorable witnesses to this pain and suffering that has to find its way back. It can't be carried simply by individuals. It has to be shared out through the culture. That's the only way it gets to be carried. We'll go back to the story. Do you remember where we were? We were in the ashes. Ikanchu and Chuna. Ikanchu had found nothing to eat, only a piece of charcoal that he played like a drum on instinct. And he danced, and as long as he was dancing, he sang there in the midst of the ashes of the world, as if to say that the human soul has a song even when death is in every direction. Eventually he tired himself out, laid down right there, slept in the ashes, and eventually woke up again. And as soon as he woke up, Ikanchu looked around to see if his charcoal drum was still there. And sure enough, there it was, laying in the ashes. But out of the piece of charcoal, there was coming a green tendril, coming out of the blackness of the charred remainder of a tree laying in the ashes of the world. There was a green tendril growing out, and Ikanchu understood what was going on. And so he jumped up and he began to dance around the piece of charcoal from which the green tendril was going. And as he danced, he sang as loud as he could there in the ashes of the world. And as he danced and as he sang, the green tendril began to grow, and it grew straight up towards the sun. And as it grew, it got wider and wider, and soon it was like the trunk of a tree. And still Ikanchu kept dancing all around it and singing to the tendril that had become a tree. And as he danced around, it grew branches, and the branches grew out in all directions. Long, wide branches growing out over the ashes, and Ikanchu dancing around it and singing. And then his foot hit something hard there in the ashes. And so he reached down to see what it was. And he pulled up a stone. And he looked at the stone. And he looked at the tree that had grown from the tendril that had sprouted from the charcoal that he had found in the ashes. And he took the stone and he threw it right at the tree. Now this may be counterintuitive and go against the principles of some people who are peaceful in all occasions. I'll have to tell you that the stone hit the tree. It hit a branch, and as soon as the branch fell off the tree and hit the ashes, it grew into a tree itself. And so Ikanchu kicked around in the ashes, found another stone, picked it up, threw it at the tree, hit another branch. That branch fell down, and it grew into a tree. And pretty soon branches were falling, and each branch became a different kind of tree, and each tree began to produce other trees, and pretty soon trees were returning to the world, forests growing in all directions. And once the forest came back, the animals came back, and after the animals came back, even people came back, and pretty soon the world had been populated. Eventually the whole world came back. The people that tell this story down in South America say when you find yourself in the ashes, it's a good time to learn how to sing and dance. When you find that your heart is broken and your soul is ripped, that's the best time to dance. For if you do, life can come back from just those broken parts. That's what they say. And when they tell this story, it's at the time of year when everyone comes together amongst the trees, and they dance and they sing and they forgive each other for everything that has happened in the year before. That's what they do with this story. And me, I'm just trying to keep a few stories alive in this world that looks like it might consume itself at any moment.
Stories told from days gone by. Step by step, day by day, we search ourselves trying to find balance in a world that has none. I'll try to start my day with a song. Come on, everyone, sing along. Such a wonderful way to start the day, and just maybe it'll catch on. And maybe we can get the rest of the world to sing along. There has to be a better way. So many angry and hurt. What else can I say? But there has to be a better way.
Greg told us about many years of suffering with post-traumatic issues and being in pain, and I know he's in pain now, continuing to have to take medications. But he wrote that poem that says, out of it comes a song, and maybe from the song there comes a better way. It takes a lot of courage to deal with all that pain and still find the roots of a song. So for your courage, and for you who have faced death but chosen life, we give you this necklace to make the nights easier and the ride smoother. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wayne Moore. I'm from Delta Troop 4th Cavalry, attached to the Big Red One. Served OIF and OEF. I'm tired of explaining myself to society that's filled with self-centered blinders. I'm tired of being labeled. I'm tired of not being able to cry. I'm tired of feeling inadequate. I'm excited for change. I'm honored to have had wonderful friends and family to carry me through this hell and keep me on track when I falter. A year ago, you could ask me, why are you living? I would tell you, my mom can't take losing me now. And now, I live to help heal and be healed.
Beautiful, huh? I live to be healed and help heal. And what Wayne's not telling you about is the suffering he's had in his hands and in his arms and how that affects him each day. And he knows about healing because he knows pain. And we that got to know him here also know his wicked laugh that comes out all the time. So for you who have faced death and suffered a lot of pain, for you who keep choosing life, we give you this necklace, wrap you back in the chain of being, and hold you here.